I was talking with Kyle again about kind of the team for next year and what the philosophy is going through that, and he's like super up to date with like current trends in coaching and what's popular at the NHL level and all this stuff. And it's not like this is brand new or anything, but he was talking about how everything is moving to like positionless hockey. So everyone needs to know how to play everywhere. So it's kind of like you're in your position when the puck drops, but then and you basically kind of stay in the lines with that. But at all times of the game, guys should be able to shuffle in and out of positions just because the game moves so quickly. And so his philosophy, bringing it down to younger ages, which is kind of what we're going to be looking at doing next year, which makes sense for a multitude of reasons. But one is that positionless style where guys understand all positions of the game. And you've talked about this a million times with, you understand the mindset of a forward as a defenseman. That helps you be a better defenseman and vice versa. So I would just wanted to point out one thing in this article. They talked about a couple guys that had changed positions playing in the NHL, which is kind of interesting. So back to this is again another article. There's a ton of benefits to waiting to specialize in hockey, but once established as a hockey player, should youth players even specialize fully in one position? Notable examples of players who changed positions from forward to defense. Jake Gardner, he did this in his junior year of high school. Rasmus Dallin.
Yeah, I just heard an interview with him.
Yeah, the year prior to his draft. Andrei Markov, he was drafted as a center and switched to D after being drafted. Brent Burns switched early in his NHL career. Dustin Byfuglien in the middle of his career. Sergei Fedorov late in his NHL career. There are countless examples where players move between right wing, left wing, and center. Some do this multiple times during a season. Boone Jenner is an example where he played 5 to 6 years in the NHL as a winger before moving to the center position. Tage Thompson moved to center from wing and then broke out as an NHL star. The next little section here is from Scotty Bowman. So he's talking about this position thing or practicing positions. All-time coaching legend and Hockey Hall of Fame NHL coach Scotty Bowman would have all of his players play each position at practice. He holds the coaching record for most Stanley Cups and more than once switched players between forward and defense. So this is a quote now from Scotty Bowman. If you maneuver players around and don't pigeonhole them into a certain position at a young age, they're going to be able to find their niche a lot easier, and it's going to be pretty seamless. There's so much to learn by playing other positions. I tried goalie, and I can tell you for certain that I'm a much better scorer because of it. This isn't just older and old-time coaches. Hockey IQ podcast guest and current Montreal Canadiens head coach Martin St. Louis said the same thing. In practices, forwards and defensemen are often mixed together. Every player plays both offensive and defensive reps. So this is something that I started doing actually by accident this year with the U18s because we're short guys a lot. So we're doing drills like 2-on-1 regroups, 1-on-1 situations, 2-on-2s, whatever. And just for the sake of keeping the flow of practice going, it's like everybody play everywhere. So we'll divide up like 2 colors, white, red, and everybody does everything. I don't care who goes, just jump in and do it. So what are your kind of thoughts, I guess, about how you see the positionless thing at higher levels? And then on the flip side, how you see it as important with younger kids when they're developing on the way up.
Well, I see it as like when you were talking about guys that transition. I remember the Leafs back in the 80s, back when I played, there was Gary Leeman and Wendell Clark for Toronto. And Wendell was drafted first overall in the NHL as a defenseman. He played his NHL career as a forward, as a left winger, I believe it was. Leeman used to do both. It's not anything that's really rocket science. I think it shouldn't really be a shock, really, because hockey's hockey, right? You should be able to just play hockey. That's what an NHL player should be able to do. And then as you get older, your tendencies are going to lend maybe to a team at a certain position. So I think you should be able to play hockey, and it's not shocking to me. Like, you might be on the point on the power play or defending in your own end on a PK, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not in one spot the whole time. So you have to learn. And then in higher levels, when you're thinking the game a little bit more, I think it's great to do reps. Like if you're a forward playing D and realize that if you turn your toes a certain way, someone can beat you to the outside. Like, you can learn lessons from both sides of the puck, right? So, like, obviously, like, to me, that's just obvious. And I think you just make yourself a better player if you know how to defend. First of all, if you can skate both positions, that's really important. But, sorry, I think it's just important that If the coach needs you to play D, you can play D. If you can play forward, you play forward. Like it's not rocket science. But getting reps and practices and doing it over and over. It's critical. Like it actually is. You should be able to do it. Um, excuse me. I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, so that's why like when we have players that are younger and they don't work their backward skating at all. Well, what happens if you're on D, penalty killing and all that stuff? Like you have to do it. So it's simple. And then when you're playing the game at high level, low levels, doesn't matter. Like I said, you're not stuck in one position the whole game. You're not a right D and you never go past the center, halfway mark of the ice, right? The dot lines or whatever. You could be all over the place, and it's just a matter of reading and reacting to the game. So if you happen to be a defenseman and you're going on a 3-on-2 and you're the second guy, well, you're going to the net, right? So it's not like, no, I'm a defenseman, I stay back. So I mean, it's pretty simple. And then if you're a player, if you're the centerman and you're the fourth or fifth guy back, then you're playing D at this point until there's a switch. It's like common sense. Now younger, I think that's where it becomes. I think that's where it's so shocking right now is because people look at their kids and they're pigeonholed when they're young to be this position, and it doesn't even make any sense that someone is 9 years old and they're a centerman or a right wing, right D, whatever. It doesn't even make sense because it's just youth hockey, not just youth hockey. It's like to pigeonhole someone like that. You're actually, I think you're not developing.
Well, you've said this before, even with like some of your OHL guys, you'll have them on the ice and we got to do backward skating and they can't skate backwards.
Not well.
Yeah, right.
Not well. I had one guy played in the NHL for not very long, but like less than 30 games. But he went to a combine. He was like, they're doing these tests on backwards. We work on backwards. I said, well, I've been trying to get you to do it for 5 years, dude. And we can try. And it was ugly as hell. But how many times, you get injuries and stuff and someone's got to play D? Like it's a good thing to be versatile, right? But I think it's parents and, well, it would be coaches too that pigeonhole kids as, they have a chart that the tallest guys are D, the fastest guy is the centerman, the shittier skaters or the wingers or however it goes. And it's almost how people do it. But I think it's very important that everyone plays different positions but now it comes down to when you're developing players or you're coaching teams, is winning more important than developing the player, right? And that's fine. If you want to win, that's your philosophy, that's fine. But I think it's important that kid has taken 5,000 face-offs in his life, so that if he gets to the OHL or college, when a guy gets kicked out of a draw, he can maybe win a face-off for you, or a defenseman even, right? Or if you get caught on a 1-on-1, or you're playing a 3-on-3 overtime, or 4-on-4 hockey and you're defending, you've been there before. It's important. To me, it's like almost stupid not to think that way.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of along those lines. I got one more quote I want to finish on, and then we can wrap it up. I don't know who this is from. It's like a graphic on the article, but it's a good quote. So, it says, "I let all youth teams play the same way, like the first team. I always put the emphasis on learning. Sometimes I had the suspicion the youth coaches were more concerned about winning. They cared about their own reputation. I cared only about the interest of the club. When a player with talent couldn't defend, I put him in defense so he could learn. But that could cost a point. But I didn't care. I was busy developing the player." So I think that little quote is kind of how I want to finish up for today, talking about the coaching philosophy behind it. And this is something that between you and I and Kyle at the academy is the philosophy we're bringing to the younger ages, where of course you want to win. Of course you want to be the most competitive, but developing kids that can play the game the right way and they can develop all of these skills is the most important thing if the goal is to have them move on to play at a better level one day. And so if that is the goal, and for us that is the goal, move them on to something better one day, then it's not about winning today. And that tail piece of that quote, "But I didn't care. I was busy developing the player." It could cost the team a point. That's crucial to be okay with as the coach or the person that's in the development role. Like if you lose the game, like what does it matter if you lose the game when they're 13 or 14 or whatever age? Because if the point is developing the player to move them on to somewhere better, then the long-term strategy has to be they have to learn how to play the game and play in all these different roles. And it's also a long-term strategy to be better equipped to win the game. Because what happens with Yeah, because with what happens with a lot of these really top end teams, or even just good teams, like there's a team around here they're a good team, but they're not actually a good team. They're a good 4 players, right? You take away one of the horses, or you play everyone with even ice time. It's a totally different team, And now, is that team really good? And all those players are they going to move on to be hockey players one day, or play at higher levels, or get the most they can out of hockey? No, probably the 3, 4 guys that are getting all the ice time will end up getting some kind of opportunity in that sense, right? And that's just a fundamental coaching philosophy that if this matters to you, then you have to be willing to adopt that, and you have to bite the fact that you're not going to win every game.
Yeah, and you're going to listen to one parent or two that say this is stupid.
Oh, for sure. For
Because
sure.
my kid's a centerman, and you get that all the time.
Yeah, and even when we're talking to parents right now about the team for next year, I genuinely do not care if we have a super team. It's nice to have the best players. Like, that's great. If you can have that, then cool. But I'd much rather
It's better to have willing players, though.
That's what I was just gonna say. I'd much rather have the guys that want to be here. They're willing to be here. They want to get better. They want to learn. And we'll start off weaker, but I guarantee you, give it 6 months, give it 1 year, give it 2 years, and you're gonna have a team of guys that can compete with anybody on any day, because we're trying to go about developing kids the right way with respect to hockey. And then that says nothing about the other things that we're trying to do to develop them as people as well. And I think that has to be core as a coach. If that's not a core piece of your philosophy, then I don't think you're in it for the right reason necessarily. So